I'm Lloyd Flood, and I am retired. Feels like an AAA meeting. I'm retired after 40 years of federal service, and my last assignment was the most compelling assignment, and that was a 3.5-year stint as an inclusion program manager. I will talk about my experience in that respect, and as a I don't say as a consequence, but as a result of that experience, I put together some information to hopefully guide you and to encourage you as you continue on this journey as a change agent and as a practitioner for change. I thank the doctor for asking me to be a part of this, and I am very humbled. But I have a lot to share, and I want you to just take away what you can. Okay, and I encourage questions. After 40 years of service, I finally retired, and I said hallelujah, hallelujah, until I found out that this stuff was still in my system and I wanted more. So I attended workshops, conferences, and I attended the same class that you're in. We had 3 or 4 times the people, but nevertheless I attended, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Not because the doctor's sitting there, but because it is. You see, I got a call from a trusted colleague who said, hey, are you happy in your current position? And I said, what kind of trick question is that? And I said, well, yeah, I'm happy. He said, well, I have another position. The agency is looking at starting a new program office. I said, okay, go on. And he said, it's called the Inclusion Program Office. Have you heard of inclusion? I'm like, no. And he said, look it up. I looked it up, ordered 5 books from Google. It was so, not Google, but Amazon. It was so exciting. And I said, yeah, I want in. I want to be a part of this. So they had an office for me, name tag, everything set up. And there I was, the inclusion program manager, ready to help make a difference in the organization. Well, as we started getting the calls to brief offices on this new inclusion initiative, I showed up with my best suit on, and I prepared to talk to these offices about inclusion and engagement and leveraging talent, and diversity was slipped in there. And boy, did I get an awakening, a very interesting awakening, and that was that it seemed like 90% of the leadership were not buying it. They didn't want to hear it, and were very vocal, and most said, isn't this another diversity initiative that you're trying to sneak in on us? Isn't this an affirmative action type program that you're trying to change the name? Isn't this the new flavor of the year, of the month? And I said, no, I never thought of it as such. But let me just tell you what I think this is, that we're doing as an inclusion program office. We're here to take this organization to the next level of greatness. Why inclusion? Because if you do some research, you'll find that there are some salient points with metrics and everything to suggest that if you do not make this an inclusive organization, you will be losing out not only on valuable officers because you don't engage, because you don't feel you have to, because you have a mix that you call diversity, which is beautiful to look around and see everything and everybody, but that doesn't suggest that you're getting anything done and that those people in the mix are included in the business to the extent that their full engagement is being utilized. Does that make sense? So anyway, that's how I was thinking. I didn't know anything. I was just reading books. And the more I got into this thing, the more I found out I was deep. And every time I went out to talk about this new inclusion program office, I was saved because A, I had a lot of history of just being there and understanding people as a counselor, but also I had a lot of books that I ordered. And it was easy to say, boom, boom, and give everybody a book and say, there it is, there's an inclusion, read on it, and give them some best practices. The agencies like best practices. You give me a top 10 list and you're successful. The first thing you do is greet people. Wow, he's got best practices. And that's what I did. I gave them what they wanted. But every day I was worn out because I knew there was more in terms of how I should approach this. Another thing I found out that they relish in saying, okay, here's an African-American man, surely he understands struggle. Surely he understands diversity and inclusion. So he's the best person for the job. He's been there, he's African-American. Wrong answer. Wrong answer. And I find that a lot of people do that. But I know people who look like me, grew up where I grew up, who have no clue or interest or propensity, nothing for this business, and should not be allowed in a classroom, much less leading. So anyway, they hit the right one. I was interested, I had proclivity, I was interested, and I was ready to learn. So, what I want to share with you with this background is why and what I discovered early on. And I have a video clip, I don't know how to get that started, Doc. One of the things I discovered, and
just let me know.
After going to conferences, and this class was the springboard. This is where I finally got over deep water, and I did this on that board, and I said, yes, I can jump off this board and clear whatever I need to clear to get me to the next level of understanding, of competence as a practitioner. Not the only thing, but a very huge hurdle. I was able to communicate with the offices that I did communicate with, the leadership, that with a successful initiative, there were studies, because metrics, very important, folks. Don't just talk. You gotta be prepared to back it up. One thing that will make you or break you is if you go into a meeting and you start trying to snow people, you know what I mean, snow people? Just kind of run over some vocabulary and put a title out there, and you don't give them any substance or anything measurable. So you gotta have that. This is a bonus. The measurable impact on customer satisfaction, employee engagement, there's that word. The engagement piece is very important. How engaged are your officers? If they're not engaged, why? Do you know them? Most managers say, well, I don't know everybody, that's what I depend on. What? If I were a coach of a football team, and I had 30 people in the room, I want to know who can run, who can kick, who can throw, who can take a hit, who was good for the team because of the spirit. That's how a manager should be. That's engagement. Then I want to leverage, because the worst thing to do is to have a person who can throw a ball 100 yards kicking a ball. And I find that out a lot in the government and most of the places I've worked. Well, let's make him a carpenter when he studied electricity. So the engagement piece is where the manager gets to see who can do what after we've put together the mix. So now I know that you're an electrician, and I'm going to find a position where you can thrive as an electrician, not because it's a moral thing, but because it's right for the organization. You feel happy, customer satisfaction, the engagement increases, the productivity increases. You're not trying to learn to be a carpenter, you are a trained electrician. And I was very inclusive by engaging you, and now I'm going to leverage that talent. I don't care what color you are, where your background is. In terms of my selection, I don't care. But I do care if there is something that serves as an impediment to prevent you from making my organization more successful. You understand? So I wouldn't pick you because you look a certain way. I would pick you because you have the skills that I need to get this job done. Now, if I relied on solely diversity, I would say, oh, I got a nice mosaic, and I would try to pick based on what I see. But if I engage you, now I got something. The profitability, everybody wants to know what that bottom line is going to be. It is your responsibility as a change agent to help an organization to understand that those four things are measurable and the impact is clear. There's no substitute. The other bonus here is that people generally feel welcomed, and they feel valued, they feel heard, and feel respected. That's an incredible feeling. Every time I was a manager, I made sure that I made each person feel valued and respected every day. You can't win everybody, but that shouldn't stop you from making this your mantra.